Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. All right, everybody, we are back, and you know what time it is? 3 o'clock on Friday. That means it's Candace Plattor's show. Welcome to your show.
Thank you.
Always
Hi,
love when you come
everybody.
on.
Thank you.
Love with Boundaries is the business and how you're helping people. Maybe you can just give people who don't know about the show and about what you're doing all the way in Canada.
Yeah. Well, I'm in Vancouver, Canada, which is one of the most beautiful places in the world, if not the most. But we work worldwide. We work primarily on Zoom now.
Mm-hmm.
And so people anywhere in the world can access us. Love with Boundaries is my company, and I am an addictions therapist, and I specialize in working with the loved ones, the families of people who are struggling with addiction, because there's so much help out there for addicts who want the help, so much help out there for them, but there's hardly any help available for the loved ones. And so I made a decision to devote my career to that, to them. I'm also an addict myself with 35 years of recovery, and I had a 15-year opioid addiction from medications that were continually prescribed for me over and over and over again by doctors for my Crohn's disease, which I've had for a very long time now. So I got addicted to those substances like anybody would, and reached quite a low bottom as a result. And I'm now 35 years clean. So
awesome.
Yeah, so we work with the addicts as well in the family when they're ready to work with us, but we start with the loved ones to start to teach them about the differences between what we call enabling and actually helping, because until some of those behaviors are shifted, the people who are addicted have really no incentive to do anything different.
Right. Can you expand on what you refer to as enabling?
Yeah, enabling actually means, I like really simple definitions. So what I say it means is when we do things for somebody else that they can and should be doing for themselves, and we're doing that on a fairly consistent basis. So basically, it's like rescuing somebody. You're doing for them what they really need to be doing for themselves to be able to prepare themselves for the world out there that actually exists, right? And enabling an addict is never a loving act. It may feel like it's loving when you give somebody $20, even if you know where that money's going to go down their throat, up their nose, into their arm, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It may feel like you're being loving, but what it actually does is it keeps your addict stuck in addiction. And we know that's not what you want. If you're a loved one listening to this show right now, you don't want your addict to stay in addiction. So you want to be careful about some of the behaviors that you're doing, and learn what it is that's actually going to help your addict come into recovery. We don't want to support addiction. We want to support recovery.
Yeah, it's so important what you say, where there isn't much help for the family because they think that they're helping, but really, you've taught this for a while. It's not helping doing for someone what they can do. Why would they not be? Why would they stop using if it's going to be that way?
Yeah, if you're going to cook all my meals and give me money and not make me pay the rent, or if it's an adult child, if it's a spouse, it'll be different behaviors. If you're going to call work for me and tell them that I'm sick when I'm really hungover,
right?
Why should I change the fact that I go out at night and drink? It's so an enabled addict does not recover, because really, why should they recover? Right. They don't have a reason to. They're not being held accountable. You're not holding their feet to the fire with this. So the most loving thing that you can really do is to start holding them accountable, raise the bar for them. Sometimes in families where there are addicts, the bar of responsibility, of self-responsibility, is set so low
Yeah,
that it's kind of almost under the ground, you know.
right. It's like a
And
child, yeah.
yeah, and I've had clients say to me, well, he puts his dishes in the dishwasher, as if that's the most wonderful thing that ever happened. He should be putting his dishes in the dishwasher, right? So it's about raising the bar and holding somebody responsible for their own choices, for their own way that they're living their lives, and and making a decision for yourself about what you will and won't put up with.
And that's why I bring this up. What if I were to say to you, well, what do you think about tough love? Does tough love work? Hey, you stop right now or you're out of here.
Right. That's a really drastic version of tough love. I love this question. I think it's a great thing to be talking about. I think that tough love has gotten a bit really bad reputation.
Yeah.
Um, over the years. There have been books written about tough love. I have people who say to me, tough love, oh, I don't like tough love. Tough love is love. It is love. And sometimes it's the most loving thing that we can do for somebody is to say no to them. It's to say, this isn't okay. We don't like this. We don't want this for you. We love you and we don't want to see you in a life of addiction, and we're not going to support that. We're not going to love you to death.
Right.
We're going to love you to life. We're going to look at the changes that need to be made here. So there are all kinds of, how you talk about going from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds.
Right.
There's all kinds of things along the spectrum of loving an addict that isn't about just kicking them out.
Right. Doesn't have to get
There
there
are
right away.
That's right. There are all kinds of things to try first
Okay.
to see whether they work. And when you get to a place of I'm done, then what you can say to the person is, we've tried many things. You haven't wanted to play ball with us. You haven't wanted to do what you need to do for yourself. We're no longer willing to put up with that. We love you, but we don't want you here if you're going to keep bringing drugs into our house, if you're going to keep bringing scuzzy people into our house, if you're going to sleep all day and be up all night when we're trying to sleep. We're not okay with you being here. So if you're not willing to change those things, you are going to have to leave.
Hmm.
And what I suggest to people when they get to the place of they need to go,
Yeah.
the addict needs to go, is that you close the door, but you don't deadbolt it.
Okay.
You don't lock the door. You close the door firmly with boundaries and consequences, but you don't deadbolt the door, because at any moment, an addict can get to a place of saying, I don't like this life for myself anymore, and I really want to go into recovery.
That's
And
what they want to hear, right?
when they get to that place, you want to open the door back up and support that.
Yeah.
So please don't ever give up. Even if your addict is out, you said go, there's a very good chance that at some point they're going to say, wait a minute. And sometimes asking them to leave speeds up that process.
I see. Do you find in your experience that during the holidays, sometimes families are made to make that distinction or make that boundary a little bit different?
Yes. Again, such a good question. The holiday season for families that are dealing with addiction is the most difficult time of the year, bar none. It's the most difficult time. And I'm just wanting to turn off my notifications here because I forgot to do that. There we go.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. How so?
So, well, you know, there are things that families just kind of go around and around and around with, like, should we invite our addict to our meal? Should we have them in our home when they're still using and drinking? Should we do that? And of course, when I talk about addiction now, I'm talking mostly about mind-altering substances. I'm not talking about the mood-altering ones like spending too much money or gambling or
Smoking
gaming all
or
night or smoking or yeah. So I'm talking about, they show up at your gathering and they're just crazy
right, right.
because their brains are on fire with drugs.
Hmm.
So when or alcohol, which I consider to be a liquid drug.
Yeah,
So when you're in that situation, you love your addict. You don't always like them. You don't always like their behavior, but you love them,
yeah.
and you want them to be with you for Christmas or Thanksgiving. You want them there. You miss them when they're not there, but you know that if they come, it could be hell on
You're
wheels.
rolling the dice.
You're rolling the dice. That's right. So that's one of the several things that people grapple with. And so what do you do in that situation? This is what families ask. Um, and I can talk about that in a minute. Another scenario for families of addicts is when they don't know where their addict is,
Uh,
and they don't even know how to contact them, and they don't even know if they're dead or alive, and sometimes they do know that they're dead, that they've passed, that they've had an overdose, and it's Christmas and they're not there, and there's so much grief and pain that families feel around this time.
I
So
see
that's
what you
one
mean
of the
now.
reasons. Sorry.
I see what you mean now by the
Yeah,
holidays being a real tough time. I
it
mean,
can be
could be either way,
treacherous.
like you said.
Yeah. Yeah. So if your addict is still with us, and I hope for as many of you as possible they are, and you're wondering whether to invite them to your gathering, what I like to suggest is that you um, talk to your other family members first and see if you can come up with a plan that people agree on. Sometimes that can be rough in a family, but to do your best with that and set some boundaries, have some consequences that the whole family can kind of be a united front with. Because then if the addict comes to your dinner or whatever your gathering is, that if something were to happen, you already know how you're going to handle it.
Okay.
So you don't have to be sitting there on pins and needles. What if he does this? What if she does that? And when that happens and the spotlight is on the addict and oh my God, is he going to do this? Is he going to drink too much? Is he going to, nobody can enjoy the meal except maybe the addict.
Right.
Nobody else is going to enjoy the meal.
Right.
I mean, he might have the munchies and love the meal, but but um so one of the things to do once you've reached some kind of consensus with your family members that are going to be there is to tell the addict in your life, we love you so much and we miss you, we miss having you around, and we really would like to have you at our gathering. um, if you do come to our gathering, what we'd like to let you know is that there are going to be some changes this year. Um, you're going to need to be clean and sober when you arrive, and you're going to be clean and sober while you're there. And you're not to bring anything in, like paraphernalia, drug paraphernalia. Don't bring us a bottle of wine. Don't do that. So you don't have to bring anything, just come yourself and be clean and sober. If you decide, if you make the choice during our meal that you're going to have something to drink and you start getting drunk, or you go into the bathroom and you snort a line of Coke
Right.
or something, we understand the changes that happen in you. Just so you know, we see the difference. And if you choose to do that, we're going to be taking your car keys and we're going to be calling you a cab or an Uber, and we're going to pour you into the car and off you'll go.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to stay at our gathering. You're not going to be able to drive yourself home.
Hmm.
So, um, but if you think you can stay clean and sober, if you can arrive that way and stay that way for a few hours with us, we would so love to have you there.
Yeah. I love how you said if you make the choice.
If you make the choice, it's always a choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, this is one of the ways that I differ a little bit from other addiction people, although I'm starting to see a shift in this. I'm starting to see more people agree with what
Oh,
I'm
okay.
saying, which is lovely. I was kind of out there
On an
alone for a
island for
long
a
time.
while.
Yeah. Um, you know, no matter how you see addiction, I don't see addiction as a disease. I have a disease. I know the difference. Yes, there's brain involvement. There's brain involvement with everything that we do as human beings. That does not mean that it translates into being a disease. I don't think addiction is a disease. I think addiction is a condition that affects the brain. I don't think we're powerless over it. I don't think that relapse is a thing that has to happen for people. These are the teachings in the addiction field that have been around for a really long time.
Setting
And
the bar low.
it takes away personal responsibility, because underneath any of that, underneath the disease model, underneath, if you think there's a genetic predisposition, which there may be, nature versus nurture, did you learn it at home? Under all of that,
Right.
whether we use or don't use, addiction is a choice we make, whether we're in active addiction or we're in recovery. And every single person like myself who's in recovery knows that. We all know that we make a choice every day not to use our addiction. And we kick addiction to the curb and we take full responsibility for that. We are powerful over that,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
Otherwise, I wouldn't be 35 years clean and sober. If I didn't have a choice about this, I'd be out there using and I'd probably be dead.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, we set the bar low. Even in some of the ways we try and get help, the bar is set really low. Like, oh, the person's gonna relapse. They have no control. It's a disease. I'm not. I'm with you. I'm not buying that. Not saying it's easy. Um,
No, no,
not
it's
saying
not
that.
easy. Recovery is not easy. Addiction is not easy either.
Right.
Living the life of an addict in active addiction, I can tell you for sure, not easy. It's not a picnic. We're not really partying.
Right.
I mean, that's a euphemism that people like to use. We're partying. It's really a mess. It's a horrible way to live. And addicts know that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they get high and they feel good for a minute or two, and then it's awful,
Yeah.
right? So, no, recovery isn't easy, but it's so much better. This life is so much better than the life of an addict in active addiction. And so, if you're a family member, what you want to be able to do is learn how to help the person that you love get out of active addiction, where they're struggling and suffering, and you're struggling and suffering right along with them, and come into recovery. And at Love with Boundaries, that's what we help you with. That's what we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Candace,
we call it, I call it Love with Boundaries because we have to have boundaries with everybody, not just with addicts. In order to have self-respect, we need to live with boundaries. We need to love with boundaries that respect ourselves, you know?
gotcha. Gotcha. I wanted
Yeah.
to ask you, how do you feel about intervention?
It depends on what you mean by intervention. If what you mean is what,
Traditional people, they have something written down and they ambush the person. That
yeah,
I want to hear your thoughts on that.
okay. Yeah, I think we're just from the words you're using, I think we're on the same page with this. But you know what you see on TV, that whole show Intervention, um, it's made for TV,
Yeah.
just so you know, and TV is kind of made to entertain and be a little bit of a fantasy, and right. So, but unfortunately, people have looked at that and they've run with that. Interventionists have have taken that model, and their hearts are in the right place. People who do interventions, they really want to help the families, but what happens is that the addict does feel ambushed.
Yeah.
So the family members write letters to the addict and then they read their letters to the addict, usually one after another, after another, after another, and the addict is sitting there going, oh my God, I can't listen to any more of this. And often an addict starts to feel very resentful because they'll think to themselves, well, what about what you've done to me?
Yeah,
I mean, do I get a chance to say any of that?
right.
But in an intervention, you kind of don't get that chance. And if it's an intervention that starts from the TV show, or maybe Dr. Phil, or shows that deal with addiction, and they get the addict to admit, or to not admit, but to accept, to say, yes, I'll go to treatment. Will you go to treatment? Will you go to rehab? And they say yes, and they see them maybe getting on the plane, and all of this, which is made for television. We have no idea what happens to that person after that show is over.
Right.
And what we know is that a lot of those people get off the plane even before the plane takes off,
Wow.
or they get off the plane at the next stop, or they go to the rehab and they stay for a few days. They have to clean bathrooms. They have to do chores. They have to help with the meals. They have to stay clean. They
Right.
have to share their feelings. Are you kidding me? I'm not like those people. I don't have to do that. And they're gone.
Yeah.
So, there's what I've done is I've come up with something called family reinvention.
Okay.
Sounds like intervention. Family reinvention, where I work with the whole family to look at the resentments that are there, to let people have a chance to talk to each other really honestly and candidly, and then look at how we can resolve some of these differences so that people feel okay with each other. They may not be best buddies,
Yeah.
but to feel, and sometimes some very warm relationships develop because they've been honest, even if it's been difficult.
This
And
is,
it's not just the addict listening to all this stuff that the family members
yeah.
need to say, want to say, but the addict needs a chance to be able to say what they feel too.
Right.
In fact, in the 12-step programs, there's a step about making amends to people.
Yeah.
There are two amends steps. So we made a list of all persons we had harmed, but there isn't a step that says we made a list of all persons who have harmed us, and we need to make them, and we need to talk to them about the fact that they've harmed us.
The root
That's not
cause
there.
in a lot of situations, I would think.
Yeah, and I think it needs to go both ways. If you're going to ask an addict to listen to your stuff, which is an okay thing to do, then you need to be willing to hear from them what they've been holding on to, and what their drug use what their addiction has really been about underneath.
Yeah.
Because the thing is that addiction isn't really about addiction, right? That's a hard thing to wrap your head around. Addiction isn't really about the drugs, the alcohol, the shopping, the gambling, the porn,
Okay.
right? Addiction is about what's underneath. Addiction is about the pain that you're feeling and what it is that brings you to a place of needing to numb yourself,
Got it. I understand.
regardless of
It's
what
why.
addiction you choose. Yeah.
Yeah. It's why you do those things. And
Yeah.
wow, I you brought up a lot of great stuff, and I'm sorry we didn't have time to get to Mr. Producer and his. By the way,
These
this is
calls
Mr.
go so
Producer's.
fast.
I know this is Mr. Producer's last day, and I just want to tell him on the air how much I've enjoyed him and working with him, and he's awesome. So,
I've enjoyed them too. Yeah.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
Candace, let me give you the last word here, please, and then tell us how to get a hold of you with all these great things that you do. People can. The holidays are coming up. Now's the
Yeah.
time, probably.
If you need help for the holidays or any other situation that you have with addiction in your family, I hope that you'll reach out. Um, so the last thing I want to say is, please don't ever give up. And really, I want to say to you that you would not have wanted to know me at all when I was in my addiction. I was a very different person than I am now than who you're seeing today. This is really who I am today, but it's taken a while for me to get to being this person. And so people can change, addicts can change, family members can change. Right? So please don't ever give up. You know, you haven't lost hope. If your addict is still here with us, don't give up.
Yeah.
And here's one other thing. If your addict isn't here with us and you're grieving that and you're having Christmas or Thanksgiving, maybe put a chair there for the addict that you've lost and just acknowledge, how you're feeling, how sad it is for you, and that you love this person. It's just a thought, just
Yeah.
an idea.
Gotcha.
Okay, so you can reach me at lovewithboundaries.com, and we give people a free, absolutely no strings attached, free 30-minute consultation over Zoom, sometimes over phone, so that you can tell us what's going on for you. We tell you how we work, how we would help you, and we can see whether we're a fit for each other. If we are, then we get to work, and if we're not, that's fine. That's okay. So the way to have that free 30-minute consultation is to fill out the questionnaire, which it's a short one. Don't have to give your whole life away. It's on the website. The link for it is on the website. So please contact us if you need some help. That's why we're here.
All right. Thank you so much, Candace Plattor, everybody. And we will see you next week. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.